Welcome back, everyone. So it's been a while since I've really put a video out on the YouTube. I have really been busy lately, getting the house ready for spring. I've gone to a couple of... Welcome back, everyone. So, yeah, it's been a while since I've done a YouTube video. I've been really lacking lately. I don't really get the enjoyment out of making videos anymore, at all, and it seems to be pretty common. I've been doing this for almost 20 years now, and it's just, it's just a chore now, guys. I'm sorry. But anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about an experience I just had with a vehicle. So this is going to be the worst car review I've ever done. I've done a couple. This one's going to be bad because we don't actually have the car here. It's not in my driveway. It's not in my garage because I don't own it. So let's talk about what transpired and what we're going to get into, huh? So I have a local Mazda dealer that I actually like this dealership. Great mechanics, great sales staff, just great people. It's a family-owned small Mazda dealer. And they're actually, I think, one of the highest volume Mazda dealers in my state. And they've earned their reputation. They're actually decent. I've sent many people, a neighbor, a couple of family members, to this particular dealership to buy a vehicle. And they were also very pleased. So I like finding shops that I can actually trust, that seem to know what they're doing when I, have my own vehicle serviced for things that I cannot do in my driveway. And one of those things happens to be state inspections. The state of New Hampshire requires all vehicles and motorcycles to be inspected annually. I'm neither for or against this policy, to be honest, because I can see both sides of it. It's not that expensive for, well, then that's relative to your budget. Some people just don't have the $50-odd for groceries, let alone to have the state tell them that their car needs a couple $1,000s in repairs that they cannot have. And oh, by the way, if you drive without a valid state inspection sticker, it's not a slap on the wrist, it's a moving violation. It goes in your driving record. Yeah. It's almost punitive. And a lot of shops will take advantage of you if they think you don't really have much of a familiarity with vehicles, and if you don't know what your vehicle's condition is, if you don't fully understand and grasp what is being inspected and what is failing and what is required, a lot of shops will actually take advantage of your situation and tell you that you need things you don't need, such as brakes, exhaust work, body repairs, things that are costly that the average person who's scraping by just can't afford to do. So it puts them in a bad situation. It's just not great. But that's not what this video is about. I brought my car in for an inspection, and I happened to run into the service manager there, and he came up to me, and I'm expecting, oh, what's wrong with my car now? Do you think it needs brakes? It doesn't need anything, but that's not the point. No, he actually, he had heard through the grapevine that this car is owned by the Miata stereo guy. And he was right. It in fact is. And my name has been getting out in places that I could not imagine. And in mostly good things, I hope. But anyway, he's like, hey, since you're here, I've got a 96 Lexus LS400, and the ECU is fried. Can you fix it? And I said, well, actually just shipped out an ECU for a 90, I think it was a 96 Mazda Miata. And pretty much all car ECUs fail for the same reason. And I explained to him that, yes, I can certainly inspect it visually and check the values of certain components that I feel may or may not be faulty, and I can replace the electrolytic capacitors, which is 90% the reason they fail. Absolutely. Here's my price. Here are the terms. I can't test it, but I'm going to do this, and this is what it costs. And he seemed like ecstatic that I could do that for him. So, but yeah, it's really funny how I just show up at my local dealer, and they're like, hey, you're the Miata radio guy. Can you fix my ECU? Anyway, so it kind of was a great opening because I was able to, he's like, oh yeah. I asked him if I could check my car out on the lift, and he's like, yeah, come on back. He's like making me feel like, I matter, which is cool. I like that in a dealership. So I walk behind the service bay into the, so we're checking out my car, and he's like, oh yeah, I've also got a Miata. And I'm like, oh, is it here? He's like, yeah, let's check it out. And it was great. But while I had his ear, I started asking him questions about the Mazda CX-50 hybrid. But before we got to that, there was a CX-90 sitting in the garage bay, high up on a lift. But the engine and transmission and entire front cradle and suspension was on the ground. So I'm like, hey, why? That's a new vehicle. What's going on? And he's like, oh yeah, the CX-90s and the CX-70s are, there's a slight problem. Oh, do tell. And I've been hearing a lot of horror stories about these particular, the CX-70s and 90s. If you didn't know, it's Mazda's attempt at creating a BMW X5 or X3. I think it's more in the line of the X5. Basically, it's 50 pounds of shit stuffed in a 5-pound sack. The drivetrain is cool. It's a mild hybrid. Straight 6. With an 8-speed automatic transmission. All-wheel drive. Rear-wheel drive. So it's longitudinally mounted. Like the Miata. And it is really well engineered. It's a lot of engineering. And as a result of all that engineering and all those slide rulers sliding and pencils pushing paper and, mathematical formulas and all the biggest brains of Mazda and maybe some Toyota engineers sitting in a sake house dreaming up what this car is going to be, they forgot about serviceability, So what happens to these engines is the cam phasers, and if you don't know what a cam phaser is, I'll try to explain it in just a few short sentences. A cam phaser is a device, usually they're hydraulic, and they're powered off of the engine's oil pressure. And what they do is they basically rotate the camshaft in relation to the camshaft drive gear, which is either belt or, in this case, chain-driven. And what happens is, so to eke out as much power, as much torque, performance out of, and efficiency, miles per gallon, out of these engines, they are now able to, and have been for years, they can change the camshaft timing in relation to the crankshaft. And what this does is it just, there's math and formulas and stuff that involves, but you can effectively make the valves close earlier or later, open earlier or later, dynamically, constantly changing the valve timing. It's called variable valve timing for a reason, because that's exactly what it does. And I think some vehicles even have variable valve lift, but I don't believe the Sky Active engines do, which is what Mazda calls their technology. Bottom line, Mazda doesn't use the hydraulic cam phasers. As a matter of fact, they use an even more advanced system. It is good engineering. It's just when things go wrong, they go wrong. They're electronic now. Now it is actually, I believe, a synchronous DC motor mounted inside of the camshaft gear, drive gear, and it spins at the same speed as the camshaft, and it speeds up and slows down based on the needs of... It's basically, we're like one step away from camless engines. I mean, we could do it now. I think there's actually a company that has already developed camless engines. Is it Koenigsegg? I don't know. But anyway, valves that are controlled by solenoids. It can be done. We're almost there. Now, on my car and Amelia's car, we both drive Mazda CX-5s, both have this technology. If a cam phaser fails, maybe an hour's worth of work. It can be done easily. But on the CX-90, the cam phasers are conveniently located on the back side of the engine against the firewall, underneath the dash. The engine bay goes, well, on the Miata, it's kind of like, it ends like right about here and kind of slants back. But on the CX-90, it's like, whoa. We're talking cab forward here. The whole, half the engine is under the dashboard, basically. So how in the hell do you get this, I don't know, $100 part replaced? You drop the entire engine, transmission, drive, everything, just to the ground to replace that one part. Now, that's just one example of the really bad serviceability of the CX-70 and 90s. They're cool. I would love to drive one. I would never buy one. I wouldn't even lease one. I love Mazda. I do. But this is just, guys, you had something great and then you fucked it up. If they had just moved the engine forward a bit, Apparently this repair is under warranty for this particular customer, but that doesn't change the fact that it could fail again outside of the warranty period. My point is, if you happen to test drive a CX-70 or a CX-90 and you really, really love it, and you're like, this is the car for me, get the extended warranty or lease the vehicle. Just don't. And by extended warranty, I don't mean the warranty that the dealer sells through some third party. I mean, get whatever additional Mazda warranty they can offer you. Because my prediction is that these two vehicles, which are identical, the only difference is the CX-70 is like a couple $100 cheaper and doesn't have the third row seat. It's the same length, but it doesn't have a third row seat. They could have combined the two vehicles into one model and called it like the CX-90 and the CX-90S for short. But it's not shorter. Suckier? I don't know. Or the CX-90L is the third row model. Whatever Mazda, whatever brainiacs were in their marketing department, why create a second model for this? Whatever. Anyway, let's not derail. Where was I? So, yeah, damn near impossible to service. And yeah, if you're going to buy one, do get the warranty. And that's it. And don't buy one from a buy here, pay here lot 5-10 years from now. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. But anyway. So, after we pondered the fate of the CX-70, CX-90 model, I said, hey, I've got two CX-5s. We just bought one, and the other one, which I own, I bought it 3 years ago, and I'm starting to think about what I might replace it with. And he says, oh? And I said, what do you think about the CX-50 hybrid? And he said, they're kind of cool. And I said, I'd like to drive one. He handed me the keys to a toothpaste color 2025 CX-50 hybrid. Now, I want to talk about this for a minute. So Mazda's doing some stuff with their product lines. We knew that for a while. They've got the CX-30, the CX, CX-50, CX-70, CX-90, and the CX-5. So, what does that tell me? Well, I believe Mazda's plan was, or is, may have been, to discontinue the CX-5, or better yet, the next generation CX-5 was going to be the CX-50. Think about this. This is exactly what they did to the CX-3, 7, and 9. I believe that their plan was the CX-5 would be replaced with the 50. But here's something that happened. See, COVID happened. And people started getting really weary about buying expensive cars. And they started being a little more... That's not true at all. I'm making this up. But I think that people were starting to get more cautious about vehicle purchases, or the company's trying to save money, or they just don't want to ruin a good thing. I don't know. I'm not a market genius. But I will tell you that the CX-5 is their top-selling model. They sell... CX-5 is basically paying for the light bills and the personnel and everything else. The CX-5 is printing money for Mazda because it is a great product. It is well built. It is very versatile. It is like the car that you know you need, but you really want something shinier, but the CX-5 is like it's a safe purchase. It's like the Toyota Camry of compact SUVs. It truly is. It is the anti-RAV4. It's a better built, better riding RAV4. I said it. You know what? I said it. That's my opinion. And if you disagree with me, that's okay. Having ridden in and driven a RAV4 and a CX-5 side by side, kind of a no-brainer. The CX-5 is the better product. But it doesn't have the Toyota name. But it does share some engineering with Toyota, but that's for another video. Toyota actually, all right, I'll just tell you, Toyota is using Mazda's VVT system in their engines. Toyota is using Mazda's, yeah. Because of the relationship, they're in the same, they're not the same company, but they have a very close relationship, and they share entire vehicles in some cases, and we'll get into that next. The CX-5 is a great product, and it sells in numbers. Mazda's kind of playing from the same playbook that Nissan was reading from when they released the new Rogue. They kept the old Rogue on the books for about 1 or 2 model years as, I think, the Rogue Select. And then after, once the new model was kind of taking foothold, when it was starting to gain traction, literally, then they dropped the compact Rogue, the older model Rogue. Volkswagen did the same thing when they took the Tiguan up market. They made it a little bit bigger. That's what Nissan did with the Rogue. They made it a bit bigger. Well, again, you've got Volkswagen did the exact same thing with the Tiguan. You could buy the old Tiguan or the new Tiguan. The new Tiguan was a much sexier product, though. So then that happened. And there was another example of this. I believe Chevy. They kept the Malibu alongside the... what was it? No, that was... Okay, yeah, they kept the old Malibu body style around for 1 or 2 model years as a fleet vehicle. And then they dropped it. But this does happen from time to time, where an automaker has a product that is basically the tooling, the engineering, the certifications, everything is bought and paid for, and people are still buying it, and they have something shinier, newer, and bigger to replace it with, but they don't want to lose sales, and they want the new model to kind of have like a soft launch. and then they can work out the bugs before they drop the old one. I believe that's the mentality here. But Mazda doesn't seem to have any plans of dropping the CX-5. I've asked the dealer that I have bought from, and I'm like, hey, are they going to drop this model, or what's going on with this thing? And they're like, we don't know. The answer officially is no. It's going to stay on for the foreseeable future and possibly even get a redesign. Well, the CX-50 is the spiritual successor to the CX-5. The 50 shares an entire driveline with the CX-5. It shares really nothing else. Everything else on the CX-50 is new. It's built in a new plant that was built with Toyota. There's a Toyota connection. And there's another one coming up. And it was meant, it's more in line with the CX-30, the 90, and the 70 in terms of design language, in terms of interior comfort and features. But it's bigger than the 50, bigger than the 30, smaller than the 70. It's kind of that in between. It's also a little bit bigger than the 5. Now, I had been looking at the 50. So the CX-50 came out the year after I bought my car. Well, actually, less than 6 or 7 months after I bought my car, to be honest. And I looked at it initially as, well, that's unfortunate. I would have bought this one if it was on the market, but I sat in one, and I kind of preferred the CX-5's interior design. I prefer the 5 for a lot of reasons. It's also, the CX-5 is also Japanese built, and it has a proven track record and has a great resale value. Whereas the 50, built in the U.S., it just kind of felt roomier, but I didn't really think much of it until a couple days ago. We're back to the hybrid. So the hybrid is, I believe, new for 25, and it shares a drivetrain, a complete drivetrain, with the CX-5's natural nemesis, the Toyota RAV4 hybrid. It has the Toyota 2.5-liter 4-cylinder engine. It has the Toyota hybrid powertrain attached to that, Toyota RAV4 batteries, Toyota RAV4 rear all-wheel drive system, which is electronic. Strange, but it is. The CX-50. Mazda didn't really have the time to go out and design a complete soup to nuts powertrain for this hybrid model. So they went to their partner in crime, Toyota, and said, hey, I'll tell you what, we'll give you a couple of Mazda 2s that you can resell as Yaris's if you give us a little bit of powertrain technology for our new CX-50 hybrid. And Toyota said, sure, why not? Have another Kawasaki. And that's exactly how it went down, as I imagine. Now, I have not driven the standard CX-50 yet. I don't imagine it's going to set my feet on fire or set my socks on fire, however that analogy goes. I don't expect it to be anything spectacular because I already own a CX-5 and I know how Mazdas handle, and how they accelerate or don't. There is a turbocharged version that I have never considered because I really don't want a turbocharged engine. I don't want turbocharged problems. I don't want a turbocharged repair bill. And I will say, and I give Mazda credit for this, this is where they have a huge leg up on their competition. If you look over at General Motors, they don't give you 2.5-liter turbocharged engines. Hell no, they give you a 1.4-liter turbocharged engine and call it a day. So that way, 50, 60,000 miles down the road, when it's belching smoke out the exhaust, you'll be like, I wish I bought a Japanese car. Or with Nissan, with their 3-cylinder Nissan Rogue. What the fuck were they thinking? But I digress. No, Mazda's like, hey, hold my sake. We're going to give a 2.5-liter normally aspirated engine to the base model, right? But we're going to also give a 2.5-liter engine to the turbocharged premium model. Yeah. And that's what they did. And but when it came to the hybrid, they're like, you know what? Homework's due tomorrow. Hey, Toyota, can you do me a solid? Now, I drove the CX-50 hybrid. That's kind of what this video is all about. I took it for... Amelia was with me. She actually came down with me. And we went out to a nice dinner after that. And I said, hey, they just gave me the keys to this car. You want to go for a ride? And she says, sure. My first impressions were this. Now, the CX-50 hybrid, let's talk about that for a quick moment. The hybrid model, they give you 3 trim levels. There's the preferred, premium, premium plus. On the normal, you get the select, and then there's a few other ones. The select is like the base of the base model. The hybrid, you start off with the preferred. With the hybrid, you start off at the preferred. And that gives you a power liftgate, power, I believe, 8-way, or 6 or 8-way driver's seat. But no power passenger seat. Both seats are heated, so there's that. No sunroof. Okay. But most of the same features that you'll find in, say, a CX-5 preferred, minus those cool things. Oh, and no HomeLink mirror, no auto-dimming mirror, but they are optional. The price, now this is where I kind of got a little bit, because I think what's happening is I'm getting so used to vehicles costing $30,000 plus that a $35,000 starting price doesn't even faze me anymore. There was a time in my life when a $20,000 car was expensive. My first brand new car, not to get way out of the weeds here, a 2007 Nissan Versa SL, which was the luxury package. It was the entry level of the luxury package. And a luxury and Nissan Versa should never be in the same sentence, but it was a pretty well-equipped car for its day. I paid $18,000 for that car in 2007. You can still buy a Nissan Versa for $18,000, or just a hair above that. V Westlife did exactly that. But it was not the luxury version. It was the it was the ace of base models. Stick shift, no padded anything, plastic door cards, plastic nothing. I mean, I'm surprised it even came with carpeting. But you can still buy a Versa for that. Well, maybe not now. Maybe not now. But you could last year. Getting back to the present day, so this CX-50 hybrid preferred is going to be your entry level. And I drove the car. Amelia was like, she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm driving this car. I'm probably never going to drive one for a while. I want to know what this thing can do. So we went on the highway, and I just let it rip. And I got to say... I have been a hybrid skeptic for years. I've never considered owning one. I've never considered even looking at one or even sitting in one. But getting one like I just did, but being handed the keys to one and saying, go have fun while we molest your beloved car, it's a different thing, So got the keys, I got in it, and the first thing I noticed was, hey, there's no noise. Amelia was kind of shocked by that. I said, well, that's because it's a hybrid. And a hybrid, when you pull out of the parking space and you're going in parking lot speeds, it's in EV mode. Assuming the battery, and the HVAC controls are in a position where that's doable. And she was like, wow, that's quite nice. And I was like, yes, it is. So we started to accelerate out of the parking lot, and you could just barely feel the engine start. I'm like, I'm listening very carefully. I'm up. There it is. I could feel that 2.5-liter Toyota kick in. And I said, we're going to have some fun. And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, we're going to go on the highway. So we actually drove up to the neighborhood here. And I just gave it hell. And boy, did it throw us back in our seats. I mean, look, I'm not easily impressed. You see what I drive. Okay, you know what I drive. I got 2 CX-5s out there, a Honda scooter, and a Miata. I'm easily impressed. I don't yearn for the thrusting, pounding of a V8 engine, in front of me. I think that's cool. But it's just, you know what? It's a lot of noise, a lot of waste. I want the components in my vehicle to serve a purpose, and I want to be able to use them fully. So drive a slow car fast rather than a fast car slow. So I don't need a V8. I just need something with a little bit of power to get out of the way. And the RAV4, the CX-50 hybrid does exactly that. It does it well. Now, comfort, I've heard a lot of controversy over the CX-50's seats. One of the things I actually like, this is interesting because most of my cars have had leather interior. Most of them. It's kind of hard to find so I never buy base models. I have a rule. I do not buy base models. Because I feel like it's a wasted opportunity, unless it's something I really want, like a manual transmission, and the only way to get one is to, get the one with the AC delete option. But I don't buy base models. And unfortunately, basically everything above base model these days has leather. I miss the days of cloth interior, like good, comfortable, well-made cloth interior. Cloth interior, when I was growing up, when I was a little kid, cloth interior was actually the luxury option. That was the option that most people wanted, with few exceptions. And those exceptions were German, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Jaguar, Rolls-Royce. Those are the exceptions. Cloth interior was the luxury option. Vinyl interior was the poverty spec. And I remember the day my dad came home with a 1980, was it an 82? I think it was an 82. This was in 1989, by the way. So it was an 82 or an 84 Pontiac J2000 blue sedan with blue vinyl interior. My mom was like, what the fuck? She hated that car. I hated that car. If you get into it and you burn your skin off. That was what a cheap car was when I was little. The car had no air conditioner either. Yeah. So nowadays it's leather. Leather is kind of your default option for most above base model cars. And I think it's a travesty. I think we need to start rethinking this. I think we need to go back to comfy interior again rather than... Look, not everybody wants to take their car on the Nuremberg rally, okay? It's just... What are we doing? I will say, though, this car here, this is an example of where leather kind of makes sense. It's a convertible. It's sporty. It's higher end. It's trim level. It's got leather, and they're butterscotch leather, and they're beautiful, and I love it. But I don't need leather. I don't need leather in my daily driver. I just don't. That's where I keep saying RAV4. That's where the CX-50 kind of has your back, literally. The CX-50 has cloth interior in the preferred package. Holy shit. I love it. I love it so much. It's more like a canvas. It's kind of like a rugged, tough material. It's not that cushy crushed velour that you would have had in a Toyota Cressida or a Nissan Maxima. This is good stuff though. The seating surface is cloth. I miss that. I miss that so much. So I get into the car and I'm like, wow, I love the seats. And they're comfortable. They're supportive. I find them comfortable. A lot of people don't find them comfortable. It seems to be a mix. Really good mix. Eclectic mix. The greatest mix of ever. Anyway, that was my Trump impression. But anyway, so lovely interior. The dashboard layout is a little bit... The car it is wider than the 5. It's a little wider. I believe it's longer. Now, this is where the CX-50 in general kind of kicks the CX-5's ass, and that is in the wheelbase. It is a couple inches longer than the 5. I don't have the numbers and stats in front of me. Sorry, I'm not a car reviewer, but it is longer, and you do feel it when you get on the highway or go, you're traveling on, faster speeds. So, short wheelbase gives you a more squirrely feel. That's the one complaint I think I've ever had with the CX-5 is the short wheelbase is evident. It's great for parking. But when you're traveling at highway speeds, it is squirrely. It doesn't feel as stable. The CX-50 corrects all of that. It's longer and it's wider. And you do feel it in the road performance. It actually drives... The one car I could compare it to, and I would say this is an accurate comparison, would be and I do miss this car, believe it or not, my Hyundai Santa Fe Sport. Okay? The Santa Fe Sport was a terrific highway cruiser. It had the longer wheelbase, longer than the Tucson, and longer than the CX-5. And it was still kind of high off the ground. The CX-50 does feel a little... It is actually higher. So let me explain what I mean by that. So the 50 hybrid is taller. So it's higher off the ground. But the ground clearance isn't any better because the battery pack sits underneath. So you really don't gain any real ground clearance at all when you opt for that model. I do believe in the CX-50, though, you do get the ground clearance. Now, the one thing that the 50 tends to kind of renege on a little bit, and where the CX-5 has the advantage, is the ceiling height is lower than the 5. So if you're transporting fairly tall objects, the CX-50 is probably not going to do it for you. The CX-5 is like 1 inch bigger, 1 inch taller, but the 50 is wider and longer. So, you kind of give a little to get a little. And the cargo space in the 50 hybrid is a little bit hampered. There is some battery pack in the way. So it does take away some of that cargo space underneath the seat, the rear seat. I'll have to do a comparison of the two side by side to really see where they found the room to put that battery pack. Now, the battery pack is something that a lot of folks have, including myself, have kind of used as a negative when it comes to whether to buy a hybrid or not, and that is the longevity of the battery pack. The battery pack that Toyota uses in this, and yes, I didn't misspeak. Toyota supplied the battery pack to Mazda. The battery packs and the technology in general have been around for about 25 years, and they seem to hold up very well. There will be some isolated cases of battery packs failing and needing to be repaired or rebuilt or replaced. But overall, the longevity of those battery packs has actually not really been that big of a problem. They're not heavily utilized, and they're not as expensive as EV packs because there's not as many cells. They're only a fraction of the size of an EV. And they use nickel metal hydride. So Toyota is using nickel metal hydride batteries. Now, even myself, I've been working on laptops most of my adult life, and nickel metal hydride batteries are kind of a swear word in the laptop industry. But for whatever reason, Toyota has decided to use nickel metal hydride over lithium ion or lithium polymer. For whatever reason, maybe cost, maybe even lifespan. Maybe the way the battery management is designed, it actually doesn't affect the nickel metal hydrides as badly as lithium ion. I don't know. I'm not an engineer. I think that's pretty freaking obvious. So in our little cruise, I noticed a couple of characteristics that I truly like in the 50 hybrid. It has a hefty feel to it, but it also, the amount of power being thrown to the ground between the gas engine and the motors, it doesn't accelerate like a heavy car. The transmission is an eCVT, and yes, I have been very vocal about how much I hate CVTs in the past. However, an eCVT does solve one of my biggest concerns with CVTs, and that is longevity and wear and tear. The eCVT uses I believe an AC. Is it AC or DC? I think it's actually an AC motor. I'll have to look up. There's so much EV technology out there that, and because it is part EV, by the way, it uses some of the same concepts, motors, batteries, and contactors and shit like that. There is an electric motor inside that transmission that, as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong. Well, let's talk about CVTs for a sec. So Nissan has given CVTs a bad name. Nissan owns a company called Jatco. Jatco builds CVTs for both Nissan and some other makers as well. They also made them for Chrysler at one point. And I believe GM used the Jatco CVTs in the Saturn Vue. Everybody knows that. But the Jatco CVTs are a push belt CVT. So they have actually the same technology that's in this Honda ADV 160 and all scooters in general. So there are two pulleys. They're variable size pulleys. They open and close, one on the driven side and one on the drive side, on the engine side. Now on the scooter, those variable pulleys are opened and closed using centrifugal force. They're a set of weights inside of the front CVT sheave. It's called a sheave. And those weights fly out and close that pulley down. Or no, wait, hold on. No, they open it up. They open it up. No, they close it. No. So they close the pulley, which forces the belt to ride higher on the pulley rather than inside the pulley. Doesn't make any sense. There are videos and cartoons that can show you how this works. So while the belt is being pulled to the outer rim of that pulley, making it increasing the ratio. The back pulley, the belt is being pulled on the back pulley, which causes a spring to it's under spring tension, and it overcomes that spring and it starts to shrink. Effectively, you got a big pulley. You start off with a big pulley and a little pulley, and when you're at the top speed, it's big pulley, little pulley. That's boom. Well, the problem with that is on a car, motor vehicle, bigger than that, they have to use steel belts. So the belts are made out of spring steel and some alloys and all kinds of stuff. The belt is composed of steel bands and metal plates. So the metal plates make up the shape of the belt, and they're stacked. You really need to watch the videos of CVTs, how they're built and how they work. It's pretty fascinating, and it'll make my explanation make more sense to you. So that CVT that's in your car depends on all these metal heavy parts, and they're constantly lubricated in a special CVT fluid. But over time, those parts wear out, and that time frame can be as little as 50 to 100,000 miles. And when those belts let go, when those steel belts, when they fail, they fail catastrophically, destroying the entire transmission in the process. And if you're lucky, the failure isn't catastrophic and it's just a hydraulic failure and it can be repaired, but generally the whole transmission needs to be rebuilt or replaced with a new one. I have seen CVT parts pop up for sale. That's why I'm saying rebuilt or repaired, because it seems like there is an industry of CVT rebuilding that is now a thing that wasn't when I owned a Nissan back in the early 2000s. But regardless of all that, Nissan is still cranking out cars, filling them right up with Hope Streams and CVTs, and they are letting their owners down. Look at where Nissan is financially right now. Do you know why they're in such bad shape? Well, I can tell you one reason. Lost customer loyalty. Lost customer loyalty because they threw crappy CVT transmissions in every model that would fit one. If they could find a way to shove one in a Frontier, they would do it. In fact, as a matter of fact, they were talking about it years ago. I remember seeing that on a journalism site somewhere. What about the eCVT, though? So we villainized CVTs, traditional CVTs. An eCVT, however, uses an electric motor and some planetary gear sets and a little bit of magic and a little bit of software to create an infinitely variable amount of gears without resorting to high friction, high failure steel belts and sheaves. Okay? Yeah. It's a better concept, I believe. And Toyota has more or less proven that their eCVTs are not bulletproof, or maybe they are bulletproof, but they don't grenade every 100,000 miles like Nissans do. They're actually a fairly competently built product. I mean, look at the Toyota Prius, the Camry hybrid, the RAV4 hybrids. These are all products that have been very successful, and they do their job and they do it well. Port that technology over to Mazda, and you have a Toyota drivetrain with some pretty cool technology. For example, and here's just one more thing I want to bring up too. So that 2.5 liter four-cylinder in the CX-50 hybrid is it's a dual injected engine. If you're not familiar with gasoline direct injection, or GDI, GDI is used in, I'd say, most vehicles now. Hyundai went all in on GDI a few years back, but I think they backtracked a little bit. But Mazda, Volkswagen, BMW, they're all, I believe, as far as I know, all GDI engines these days. GDI engines, so normally on a port injected, let me get a visual aid. So this engine is very typical of what you would find in nearly every car, in one form or another, 30, 35 years ago. Hell, even 20 years ago. This is a standard four-cylinder motor, coil pack ignition, very basic technology. No coilover plug yet at this point. With what's called port injection. So here are the injectors. There's 4 injectors in a row. And they're injecting right into the intake stream. So there's your intake manifold here. Air comes in here. This is just a glorified air valve. And right down here are the fuel injectors. And they spray sequentially into whichever port is at the intake stroke at that moment. While it's doing that, it is cleaning the intake valves. So gasoline contains detergents to help keep the intake tract clean, especially the intake valves. This is a system that has worked, there are still vehicles that still use port injection. But then the Europeans, I think it was BMW that was one of the first, or maybe Volkswagen, Audi. Doesn't matter. Some engineers came along and said, well, that's great. but we can do better. We can inject the fuel right next to the spark plug, or pretty close to it, directly into the combustion chamber. And they're like, well, what are the benefits of that? The benefit is a more precise, better time delivery of fuel during the compression stroke. So you get a more efficient and therefore more powerful combustion, I guess. So by better timing the fuel delivery, you have tighter controls over things like emissions and wasted fuel, and which leads to emissions improvements. Better power delivery, more on-point power delivery. This coupled with a couple of other technologies that are also in modern engines, like variable valve timing, which we covered earlier. This does not have that. The camshafts are locked into position, and they cannot be changed forward or back without literally. See, back in the old days, they didn't have variable valve timing. What they would do is they would replace the camshafts with camshafts that were designed to deliver more power at a very specific RPM range. But now we don't have to do that. And then they added, variable intake manifold runners, so you can actually change the airflow as it's coming into the engine so that it has more velocity at lower speeds to give you better acceleration. There's all kinds of cool stuff. Gas engines are fascinating when you start looking into the technologies and how they evolved. But getting back to GDI. So GDI gives you a more precise control, better combustion, more power. When combined with other technologies and diet and exercise, you end up with a better engine. But the downfall of GDI is carbon buildup. Carbon buildup is the enemy of GDI engines, in addition to fuel washing down cylinders. Honda had a problem with this. I know Honda specifically had a problem with this, where they were getting fuel washout or fuel dilution contaminating the engine oil, which would thin out the engine oil and cause engine damage. I believe they corrected this. This was on their Earth Dreams engine. Ooh, Earth Dreams. CFC free. Totally natural, organic Earth Dreams. But what was happening was those engines were failing because of oil and gasoline mixing. So they were delivering, I believe, too much fuel, and it was washing down the oil in the cylinders and getting down past the rings, getting into the oil. Oh, it's a mess. But carbon buildup is the number one, and that is because on this engine, the fuel is washing the backsides of the intake valves at every intake stroke. And on a GDI engine, this doesn't exist. There is no fuel rail here. Okay? The injectors are over here. So it's spraying directly into the combustion chamber. Okay? But what else is going on here? What's this guy right here? This is an EGR valve. This is an emissions mandate that I believe Mazda figured out a way to not use these anymore. But some GDI engines still do. And this is an exhaust gas recirculation valve. And what it does is it reburns some of the exhaust gases. There's a pipe coming off of the exhaust manifold right there. That steel pipe right there, that guy. So that takes raw exhaust gases and pipes it over to here, right there. Okay? And this little valve here is what opens and closes that gateway. So during certain, and I don't recall which, depending on engine load and temperature, that valve opens up and it starts to suck in unburned exhaust. The idea is to reburn some of the exhaust so that any gasoline that makes it past the that makes it through into the exhaust. It doesn't get burned because incomplete combustion, inefficient combustion. This guy comes in and says, oh, no, you don't. And it starts to recirculate and reburn it. It's a technology that has worked for years. The only purpose is to reduce unburned hydrocarbons, unburned fuel. That's the only reason it's there, because of inefficiency. But some GDI engines still use it. So now you're getting dirty, sooty exhaust, theoretically, back into the intake, back into the intake stream, through the valve train. And over time, that builds up particles that are no longer being washed away because you've taken out the one thing that was there to clean it. But it gets worse. You have PCV emissions, positive crank valve emissions. Oh, that's right here. Sorry. There's your PCV valve. Now, this takes pressure that builds up in the engine over time during the normal operation of the engine. There will be some byproducts of combustion that end up inside the engine, and it sucks that fine mist of oil and sadness, and it pumps it through here. Well, it doesn't pump it. It sucks it through here into the into the intake, and then it sends it back into the intake stream along with the EGR output. And it creates a situation where if you didn't have these injectors, the intake valves would start to get dirtier and dirtier and dirtier and dirtier until the engine starts to misfire. At that point, off with your head. No. At that point, you've got to remove the intake manifold, and you have to clean the intake ports. Preferred method is, I believe, walnut blasting. Nobody wants to pay for that, right? So what Toyota has done, and this technology has made it into the new Mazda CX-50, is to integrate 4 injectors. So you've got the 4 port injectors, and you've got the 4 direct injectors. Now, the computer does some wizardry and brainiac stuff, and it determines which injectors to fire and when. And what that does is it brings back some of these self-cleaning properties that the old-fashioned dinosaur Jurassic port injection engines had. Pretty cool. And you also get the benefit of GDI, better efficiency, better power. This engine here, let me just put it this way. This is a 1.8 liter, normally aspirated engine. It puts out less power than any engine made today. Any engine made in the past 20 years. Literally. Because, seriously, anything made in the past 20 years has more power than this. And technology is a great thing sometimes. That having been said, this engine will last 400,000 miles with just routine maintenance. And no engine today can do that. Unless it says Caterpillar on it, maybe. So there you have it. The CX-50 hybrid is kind of the best of Toyota with the best of Mazda. Now, I am a sucker for a good Skyactiv engine. I own one of them, and I think they're great motors. I think Mazda builds amazing engines, amazing transmissions. They're an engineering company. They are the engineers' car company. And they're damn good at it. But Toyota has been developing hybrid technology for so long that they know what they're doing. Mazda, they have the chassis dynamics right down. They have it dialed in. I have never driven a Toyota product that I've actually liked. That is a true story. I've driven dozens of Toyotas. I've never driven one that I've liked. There is something inherently wrong. I don't know how to put it. My father bought a Toyota pickup, probably 20 years ago. And at the time, I had an old 87 Nissan pickup. And he let me drive his Toyota. I'm like, this sucks. I just did not like it. There was nothing about it that I liked. Sure, it was reliable, but it didn't there was something just, the Nissan was a better truck. It just drove better. It felt better. The seating position was better. The engine sound was better. I mean, the Nissan was just the better of the two, even though his was a lot newer and in way better condition. I've driven Corollas, Camrys, Highlanders. I hate them all. RAV4s. I just don't like them. And because if reliability were the one thing I cared about, I would be in a Camry right now, or a RAV4. But driving dynamics are important, because what do you do with a car? You drive it, right? So Mazda builds a better driving car, hands down. And that's why I'm convinced that the CX-50 hybrid is, when people start test driving them, it's an enlightening experience. It really is. And I was against hybrids my whole life. Now I want one. So what's my plan? Am I going to go buy one? Well, no. I'm an adult. I'm an adult now. I will be married soon. I'll have a wife. She's currently my fiance, soon to be wife. And I want to do more responsible things. I don't want to just keep buying new vehicles because I feel the urge to do so. And that is what I would have done before. I've done it many times, more times than I care to count. So that having been said, I will be considering a hybrid CX-50 for my next vehicle. I absolutely 100%. But right now, I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I told myself, I put it this way, in maybe 1 year from now, maybe 2, that's when I'll pull the trigger. We'll see how the car market looks in 1 year or 2 years. This may be my one opportunity to own one, and that's it. I'll never get it up, because by the time I'm ready to buy it in 2 years, cars will be $100,000 plus tariffs. Could be. Who knows? We don't know. There's a lot of things we don't know. But what I'm saying is, my next vehicle it's in the bag. There's no way. There's no other vehicle you can show me that I would want more than what I drove the other day. So this is kind of like a not review, but kind of a review of a vehicle that we can't show you. But there are tons of vehicles out there, tons of videos out there that do a better job of showing you physically what's what on the new CX-50s and the hybrids. And I suggest you consider one. Fuel mileage. Oh yeah, I didn't even talk about fuel mileage. And the dislikes. So there are dislikes, and there are fuel mileage is, I believe it's 38 city, 34 combined, something like that. Really damn close to 40 miles per gallon from a vehicle that's quite sizable and versatile. 30 miles per gallon, I think, is like low highway estimate. So, 30 miles per gallon is still an achievement when the normally aspirated model only gets about 26, 27. I think the most I get round town is like 25. I can get 30 highway, but on the hybrid, I could get 38. Yeah. So the one thing I don't like about the preferred package, and this would be a deal breaker for me, I'm sorry, but the stereo sucks. It has the same basic stereo that's in the CX-5 preferred, which really sucks. It's one of the most dead sounding stereos I've ever had in a car, and I'm sorry to say that. It just doesn't deliver. You have to get the Bose package, which is not offered on the preferred. You have to get, I believe, the premium. So that is a total deal breaker. I will have to spend the extra money just for the stereo. I told myself that if I do buy another Mazda, it will not have the standard model stereo. I will not do it. They are just dead sounding. I don't know how else to put it. I mean, most of my old Hyundais had better sounding stereos than what I'm getting in my Mazdas. And to me, that's a big one. Like that is a deal breaker and a half, because I listen to a ton of music in my cars, and I just can't cozy up to the CX-5's base model stereo or the 50. So that is a kind of a letdown. It is an 8-speaker system. Whoop-de-friggin-do. What are they? 8 iPods, Apple Pod speakers. Earpods. Yeah. What are those things called? Earbud, whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's like 1 a.m. now. I'm getting tired. So it just sounds terrible. If you're gonna drive one, drive the premium. It's $37,000 for the premium, and 34-ish for the preferred. I think it's worth a few extra $1,000. You also get a power passenger seat and a few other bells and whistles. So, anyway, thank you for watching. Have a great day.